They said the war had ended. The core worlds, bloated with luxury and distance from the battlefield, signed their peace treaties and congratulated themselves on a war well fought. The citadels rang with celebration. Gold leaf banners fluttered in cities that hadn't seen ash in a generation. The rich slept easy, far from the smoking ruins of frontier colonies. But Earth never got an invitation to the party, because Earth wasn't a core world. We were a memory, a rumor, a warning. They didn't rebuild us, they erased us. And when we clawed our way back from the edge, when our ships rose from orbital shipyards made from melted down scrap, when our soldiers marched in patchwork armor made of every scrap of pain, we saw what they'd built without us. They called it New Celesta, a perfect world, untouched, artificial, orbiting the light of a tamed star. Its atmosphere was controlled, its soil genetically filtered, its skies always blue. No storms, no hunger, no war. And when our battered fleet sent a diplomatic signal, asking for permission to speak, to land, to exist, they labeled us hostile unknowns and opened fire. The blast shook the UN's vengeance, sending sparks cascading across the command deck. Captain Adira Morrow held firm against the railing, eyes narrowing through the smoke. Shields, she barked. Dropped to 48%, replied Lieutenant Brox. His forearms danced over the console. That hit came from a planetary defense grid. We didn't even cross the line yet. Adira grit her teeth. They're warning us off. They call it heaven, Brox muttered, but they sure act like hell's gatekeepers. The main screen flickered, then focused. There it was, New Celestia. It hung like a jewel in the void, wrapped in silver orbital rings, vast cities glittering like constellations across its perfect continents. No signs of pollution, no warships in orbit, just gleaming towers, agricultural fields, peace, manufactured peace. You still want to go down there? Brox asked. Adira didn't answer. She stared at the planet for a long moment. Then she turned. Prep drop Team Alpha 1. We're going in. Alpha 1 wasn't Earth's best. They were what was left. Soldiers from failed colonies. Exosuit veterans who fought in Loatma riots. Orphans from orbital wreckage who joined the fleet because there was nowhere else to go. And they wore it like armor. Sergeant Dax was one of the oldest, his armor painted with dozens of tally marks, none of them official. Beside him was Reyes, a sniper whose left eye had been replaced with a HUD interface that flickered when she was angry. Behind them came Boss Remetic, explosives, expert, and adrenaline junkie. Think they'll greet us with flowers? Reyes asked, locking in her helmet. If they do, Dax grunted. They're rigged. The drop pod clamped shut. Adira's voice came through their comms. Objective remains unchanged. Secure a landing zone. Establish communications. No unnecessary aggression. There was a pause. Double quotes. ... But if they fire again, fire back harder. The pods launched, like bullets through the dark. The descent was rough. Artificial storms curled around the upper atmosphere like angry clouds, likely generated by defense grids meant to fry unauthorized vessels. The pod rattled, the plating groaned, and then dash, boom, impact. The door blew open. They stepped into heaven. It was beautiful. That made it worse. The landing zone was a park, real grass, engineered trees swaying in a wind that smelled like spring. Synthetic birds chirped from golden branches. Somewhere, a soft violin melody played. It was a lie, a machine-made lie, and the people, here the ones who ran from the impact, the ones who screamed and scattered, they didn't look scared, they looked offended. Reyes lowered her rifle. They're not running because they're scared. They're running because they don't want us touching their paradise. Dax spat. Maybe we should have come dirtier. No, Adira's voice cut in through comms. We came human. That's already dirty enough to them. Basri scanned the area. We've got movement. Drones, small arm energy signals, surveillance net lighting up. They know we're here. Reyes stepped forward, placing a beacon in the ground. Then let's give them a reason to listen. They came within the hour, not in warships, in robes. Hovercraft descended from sky bridges, shaped like glass wings. Priests in white gold garb floated down, flanked by towering security automatons built like angels' wings of energy, faces of mirrored plates. The lead figure stopped just short of the squad. "Unauthorized landing," he said, voice smooth as silk over the translator grid. "You are from Earth." Adira's voice crackled in Alpha One's earpieces. "Don't answer. Not yet." Dax stepped forward anyway. "Yeah, Earth. Heard of it." The priest didn't blink. It was condemned, cleansed, forgotten. Reyes snorted. "Funny. We remember. All of you just fine. There is no place for corruption here," he said coldly. "No place for rot. You are infection. Disease." Reyes took a step forward, but Dax stopped her. "Let me guess," Dax said. "You built heaven for yourselves. And when we showed up," the priest's mouth twisted, "you brought hell." They didn't fire. Not yet. They just turned and left. But the message was clear. Leave, or be cleansed. Night fell. The squad dug in. Basri finished wiring perimeter defenses. Reyes set up overwatch on a marble statue shaped like a phoenix. Dax cleaned his rifle in silence. Adira spoke over comms again. "This planet, it's not just built to be perfect. It's built to be exclusive. To them, we're reminders of what they left behind, what they stepped on to get here. They won't let us stay, but they'll never forget that we did." Above them, in the sky of their so-called heaven, a dozen pinpricks of light moved, quiet, slow, coordinated. Reyes saw them first. She zoomed in, squinted, her breath caught. "They're not drones." Dax looked up, his face turned to stone. "Nope. They're angels. Machines made of war and beauty, shaped like myths, descended on fireless wings. Heaven had judged us, and it found us unworthy. But they forgot something about Earth. We don't bow to gods, we burn them." They didn't scream, not when the first shot fired, not when the first angel fell, not even when the sky itself seemed to crack open with plasma trails and kinetic trails of destruction. The citizens of New Celestia just watched eyes wide, horrified like something sacred had been defiled, and maybe it had. But Earth hadn't come to worship. Earth had come to wake them up. The first angel hit the ground like a meteor, 7 meters tall, sculpted in ivory white alloys and feathered wings of photonic energy that bent gravity around them. Their faces were smooth chrome, no mouths, no eyes, just silence, until one spoke. "You were warned." Sergeant Dax didn't flinch. He just raised his antimatter rifle and pulled the trigger. The round hit dead center. The angel exploded in a burst of white and red fire, fractured feathers fluttering like torn paper through the air. Basri stared. "They bleed." Reyes grinned from behind cover. "Guess heaven didn't make them gods after all." There were 6 of them total Judgment Class Enforcement Archons, according to Basri's scan. Each one equipped with a kinetic distortion, halo, and psionic lance that could turn solid rock to vapor. 3 advanced from the east, flanking the garden. 2 descended from above like comets, and 1 stood still, watching. Recording. That one Dax knew his command. He tapped into squad comms. "Sniper, center, Chrome Dome. Take it." Reyes didn't reply, just breathed out, slow and steady. The crack of the shot split the air. The recording Archon jerked back, its head shattered like glass. And just like that, the angels came alive. Reyes shifted to the next target, armed a sonic mine, and tossed it through a decorative fountain. Dax rushed forward, gun blazing, shouting, "Come on, then. Let's see if your gods bleed too." The angels did not move like machines. They moved like dancers, graceful, unstoppable, deliberate. One swept its wings, and a pulse of gravity sent Dax flying into a tree, armor dented. Another raised its psionic lance and fired a bolt of compressed willpower. Basri barely dodged, but the humans fought harder, because Earth didn't train for beauty, it trained for pain, and these weren't sea demons, they were survivors. Adira's voice snapped through comms. Reinforcements inbound. 2 squads, aerial ETA. 3 minutes. Hold. Copy. Dax groaned, crawling back to his feet. But tell them to bring bigger guns. Reyes clipped another Archon in the wing, sending it spiraling into the garden pond. Basri rushed to Dax's side, slapped a stim pack into his side. Then threw a grenade toward a decorative angel statue that turned out to be another drone turret. Everything burned. The perfect garden blackened under plasma fire, and then silence. The last Arcanid's wings torn, its blade broken, knelt before Dax, voice like static and steel. You are corrupted, but strong. Dax leveled his rifle at its head. We were strong because you left us behind, and pulled the trigger. 30 seconds later, Earth's dropships screamed across the sky, unloading more boots and guns into New Celesta's fake Eden. Adira stepped down from the lead ship herself, eyes scanning the carnage. What happened? Dax pulled off his helmet. Blood matted his hair. They sent angels. She raised an eyebrow, and he stared up at the burning white towers. We broke their halos. Elsewhere, in a chamber of light and glass, the High Council of convened an emergency session. They floated in silence, not panic, disgust. They came back, one of them said, like rats in fire. Another nodded. I warned you. Earth would not die quietly. They do not understand peace. No, the speaker said. They understand punishment. They bring it. Images of the ruined garden filled the holoscreens, broken angel constructs, flaming statues, citizens fleeing, screams, smoke, and in the center, one human, staring back at the drone camera, unflinching. They wear pain like armor, the speaker whispered. They do not belong in paradise. The chamber fell quiet. Then a decision was made. Activate Project Halo Fall. Back on the ground, the garden had become a forward base. Dax cleaned his rifle, next to a burning angel core. Reyes scanned the sky. Basri stitched a burn on her arm, while chewing gum like nothing had happened. Adira stepped onto a makeshift command platform, looking out over the colony. They're not just defending paradise, she said. They're ashamed we made it here. Dax looked up. So they're gonna push harder. She nodded, and then it began. The sky turned red, clouds parted like curtains. A single construct 20 kilometers across descended from orbit. Not a ship, not a station. A continent, shaped like a ring, glowing like a second sun. Project Halo Fall. Adira whispered, my God. Dax just laughed. No, God's here, Cap. He loaded another magazine. Only demons. Project Halo Fall wasn't just a weapon, it was a message, a celestial ring of death, forged in orbit, descending with the elegance of divinity and the brutality of extinction. It hovered over the colony garden like a noose made of light. Citizens of New Celestia gathered in silence, eyes uplifted, hands folded in worship. They didn't scream, they didn't panic, they prayed, because this, to them, was divine will, to Earth's soldiers. It was a challenge, and they never turned away from a challenge. We need to destroy it, Adira said, eyes fixed on the colossal structure above. Now. The UN's vengeance was still in orbit, barely functional, drawing enemy fire just to stay alive. The rest of the fleet was scattered or grounded. This wasn't going to be a fleet battle. It was going to be a suicide. Run, Sergeant Dax grunted. How? Do you kill a continent? Reyes was already mapping trajectories. There's a core, central shaft, artificial sun reactor, probably the size of a mountain. Detonating it. Basri cracked her knuckles. We'd turned paradise into glass. Adira looked out over the burning trees. Good. The plan was insane. But they were Earthborn. Insanity was their native tongue. Alpha 1 would infiltrate the Halo Falls undercarriage via stolen transport drones. Once inside, Reyes would guide them through maintenance tunnels, voiding the angelic sentries still patrolling the interiors. Basri would plant the charge. Dax. He would hold the line, the hard way. The drone transport shook as it rose through the atmosphere, cloaked by electromagnetic storms and spoofed ID signals pulled from the broken angel remains. Inside, Reyes checked her rifle. Basri hummed a tune. Dax stared at the ceiling in silence. Remember when missions had exfil plans? Basri joked. Yeah, Reyes said. Remember when heaven wasn't trying to kill us? Dax just smiled grimly. Don't worry. We're the demons, right? Time to show them what hell really looks like. They breached the Halo Fall interior without alarm. It was worse than they imagined. No rust. No air. No scent of oil or sweat. Just blinding white corridors, humming with sterilized power. Walls that curved in mathematically perfect angles. Floors that cleaned themselves. It was like walking through a dream that refused to acknowledge your presence, Reyes whispered. This place doesn't breathe. It doesn't live, Dax replied. No wonder they hate us, Basri muttered. We bring noise. They pressed deeper. The first angel appeared without sound. It stepped from the wall. Literally phased. Merged with the architecture. It peeled itself out like silk unwinding. Tall, featureless, dead eyes. But this one spoke with two voices, one synthetic, one human. You are not of the blessed. Dax raised his rifle. We know. And fired. Alarms didn't blare. Lights didn't flash red. Instead, the corridor turned warmer, as if Halo Fall had decided to get serious. 15 minutes in, they were pinned. Reyes was down behind cover, leg wounded. Basri had used the last of her flash grenades. Dax was out of breath, and they'd barely breached 10% of the superstructure. We need a miracle, Reyes hissed. No, Dax said. We need a distraction. He stood up, handed Reyes a beacon transmitter. Go with Basri, get to the core, and you. He smirked. Time to act like the demon they're so scared of. Dax ran straight down the corridor, firing wildly, laughing. Come on then, bow to your saints. I'm the sword you tried to bury. The angels followed. 6 of them, their footsteps silent, their weapons glowing. But Dax was louder. Every shot, every scream, every step was a message. You can build heaven, but earth remembers fire. Meanwhile, Reyes and Basri reached the reactor shaft. It was transcendent, a sun caged in rings of data, spinning equations held in suspension by psionic force. Basri whispered, "This is math pretending to be God." "Let's give it a theology lesson," Reyes said. The charge was set. Basri primed it. 2 minutes. Reyes turned to the lift shaft. "We're not leaving without Dax." Basri didn't argue. They found him in the lower deck bleeding, surrounded by shattered constructs, helmet cracked, still grinning. "Miss me," he rasped. Reyes hauled him up. "We'll miss the boom if we don't move." They ran. All 3 of them, the reactor behind them beginning to scream in a language only gods should hear. When the blast came, it wasn't light, it was colors. They couldn't name. Shapes that weren't possible. Sound that bled. Halo Fall didn't explode, it wept, collapsing into its own perfection, unable to sustain the imperfection humanity had introduced. As they dropped back into ATMA, the sky above New Celesta turned black. The ring fell in silence. Adira stood on the command platform, watching. Her voice was soft. "They built a heaven. The ashes rained down, and we reminded them who lit the first fire." When Halo Fall fell, it didn't just break the sky, it broke the illusion. New Celesta's skies, once eternally blue, turned a gray they'd never known. Not rain clouds, not smoke, just something they didn't design, a natural imperfection. And suddenly, perfection didn't feel holy anymore. For the first time in centuries, the citizens of New Celestia saw wreckage. Buildings near the drop site were scarred from falling debris. Park sculptures lay in ruins. Their angelic enforcers, the constructs they'd trusted to keep their world safe, now smoldered in heaps of alloy and ruin. But worse than the fire was the silence. No priests to soothe the people, no council broadcast to explain, only one whispered word that spread like a virus: Earth. In the ruins of Sector 9, a woman named Celine knelt beside a cracked monument of light. She was not military, not even political. She was a teacher, one of the few who remembered what it was like to ask questions instead of reciting answers. Her students, huddled beneath an awning, looked to her now with wide, unsure eyes. "Miss Soline," one of them whispered. "Were they really demons?" Soline didn't answer right away. She looked up at the sky, where the halo still flickered with dying light. "No," she said softly. "They bled." Deep in the central citadel, the High Council convened again, but the room, once silent and reverent, was filled with arguments. "This is blasphemy," one shouted. "They burned our guardians." Another hissed. "They were relics, constructs, not gods. They destroyed our defense system in a single strike." The speaker stood slowly, his white robe stained with dust from the collapsing upper spires. "We called them demons," he said quietly, "because they reminded us of what we used to be." No one spoke. He turned toward the central hologram now, displaying a live feed of the Earth camp on the outskirts of Sector 12. Soldiers helping wounded, civilians being given food, some children approaching them without fear, and the humans, smiling, tired, dirty, bleeding, but smiling, in the camp. Adira walked through rows of makeshift shelters. Reyes was on overwatch. Basri ran tria. Dax sat nearby, arm in a sling, telling stories to local kids like he hadn't just shot a god machine 3 days ago. A man approached from the city, unarmed, older, skin like marble, voice like glass. "I am Scholar Vel," he said to Adira. Historian of Celestia. Adira raised a brow. "Didn't know perfection needed a record keeper." "We keep records," he said. "We just don't remember pain." Adira crossed her arms. "Maybe that's your problem." Vel nodded slowly. "You fight like devils, but you treat your wounded like saints." Adira tilted her head. "You built a heaven that had no room for imperfection. No room for us." Vel met her gaze. "Maybe that means it wasn't heaven at all." That night, Solon walked into the Earth camp alone. The guards didn't stop her. They watched her walk, barefoot on shattered marble, toward the fire pit where Dax and Reyes were sharing rations. She sat down beside them, said nothing, then held out a small book, old, printed, no dataships, just ink and paper. "It's from before Celestia," she said, "from when we were still human." Dax took it gently. The title read, "On the Value of the Flawed." In the skies above, the council met again, but this time, the speaker did not propose new weapons. He proposed a conversation, not peace, not surrender, just honesty. Adira stood in the transmission chamber the next day, staring into the camera that connected every core world, every moon colony, every arrogant world that had ignored Earth's screams. Her voice was steady, her uniform stained with soot. "My name is Captain Adira Morrow. I was born in a city made of ruins, raised in a nation that was never rebuilt. I learned to shoot before I learned to write. And I've buried more friends than most of you have names." She paused. "You built a heaven for yourselves. But heaven doesn't forget the rest of us, because we survived, we adapted, we changed, and now, we're here. We are not your demons. We are your future. Somewhere, in a child's bedroom on a moon in the Vixen system." A girl rewound that speech and played it again. "Somewhere else. A priest shut off the transmission in disgust. But in 1,000 other places, on 1,000 other worlds, someone whispered, they sound like us. Reyes walked with Selene through the rebuilt edge of the park. You think they'll ever trust us? She asked. Solene shook her head. No, but maybe that's not the point. What is? To remind them that demons bleed. Atop a hill, scorched by drop fire, Dax stood alone, his voice soft over the coms. They don't know what to call us anymore. Good, Adira replied. Let's give them something new. They stood in the same hall, where Earth had once been declared extinct. This time, Earth answered back. The High Council's chamber was cracked now. The ceiling bore fractures from tremors during Halo Fall's collapse. The golden floor had scuff, marks, boots, blood, soot. Imperfection had entered the holy place, and it would never leave again. Adira Morrow stood before them, unarmed, armor dulled from battle. Her uniform bore no medals, just ash and grit and the seal of a forgotten planet. Dax stood beside her, arms still in a sling. Basri flanked the rear, pulse grenade slung casually from her hip. Reyes watched from above, sniper rifle holstered, but always close. No guard stopped them, because this wasn't conquest. This was reckoning. The speaker of New Celesta rose. He looked older than last time. Not physically, his bioframe was still pristine, but his eyes carried a weight that hadn't been there before. You have brought war to our paradise, he said. Adira didn't flinch. No, we brought truth. You shattered our guardians. They tried to kill us first. You, she cut him off. You erased Earth from every map, every archive, every galactic register. You let us starve, burn, die. You looked away for centuries. Her voice rose not in rage, but in certainty. We didn't come here to beg. We came to remind you. Heaven built on forgetting is just another hell. The chamber went silent. Dax stepped forward, tossing a charred feather from an angel construct onto the floor. It spun once, landed at the speaker's feet. We're not here to burn your world, he said. He smiled just slightly. Unless you make us. A long pause. Then the speaker said, softly, and if we don't, then we rebuild, Adira said. Together. Imperfect, flawed, human. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But it began, for the first time. A joint broadcast between Earth and New Celesta was transmitted across the core. The title was simple. Echoes from the Forgotten. Adira narrated. Salone edited. Even Scholar. Vel contributed, dusting off forbidden texts. The message, Earth lives. The truth, Earth remembers, and now so will they all. In the months that followed, New Celesta's elite sent engineers to Earth's orbit to help restore the vengeance. In return, Earth sent farmers and builders people who knew how to grow things from nothing. Children from both worlds played together in the ash gardens, still half-burned, but full of laughter. One of them built a model angel from scraps. Dax saw it and asked, "What's that?" The kid grinned. "I dunno. I just thought they looked cool." Dax nodded. Yeah, they did. But not everyone accepted it. Some on New Celesta still whispered in corners about Earth's infection. They built cults of purity, reciting old scripture about divine order. Some plotted Dot, and Earth had its radicals, two people who wanted vengeance, not peace, who said forgiveness was just surrender in disguise. Peace had to be carved, not gifted. It all came to a head 6 months later. A remote comms tower in the Equinox Arc was bombed, 5 dead, both Earthborn and Celestian. The footage leaked. Outrage exploded across the galaxy. Old wounds tore open. On the edge of it all, Adira stood again before the camera. Same uniform, same fire in her voice. Pain doesn't vanish, she said. It becomes part of us. We were forgotten, lied about, hunted, and still, we choose to build. Because Earth is not just a planet, it's a promise. And that promise echoed far beyond the core. In distant colonies, human engineers taught Celestian orphans how to weld. In temples once closed to outsiders, Earth's soldiers were now buried with honor, and on New Celesta itself, a new statue stood beside the garden memorial, a soldier in tattered armor, one hand raised, 1 foot forward, no weapon drawn. The plaque read, "Here stood a demon, who reminded gods they were mortal." In orbit, the second Halofall ring was under construction, but this time, it wasn't a weapon, it was a shipyard, a joint venture. The first vessel planned would be a long-range explorer, bound for deep space. Its name was selected by both Earth and Celestian children in a galaxy-wide vote. They named it Uinite Wideaxe, looked up at it from the edge of the camp, whistling low. "They're actually gonna launch it." Reyes smirked, surprised. He shrugged. "Guess I just didn't think heaven and hell could fly the same flag." Adira stood beside them, quiet. Then she said, "It's not a flag, it's a fire. Fire to burn lies. Fire to light the path. Fire between stars. Because they called us demons, but we were never evil. We were just refused, forgotten, buried. Now we rise."